one, look at existing salaries relative to those new pay ranges. We have 3 implementation options that have been prepared, looking at moving employees to the minimum if their salary is below that minimum. Everyone else would retain what they already have. The next one is moving them to the 25th percentile if they're below that mark, or the midpoint if they're below that mark. So all 4 of the pay plans have option 1 shown up here. Kind of looking across all of these, there are, I don't have the numbers, but I've prepared a table at the bottom to kind of indicate what the average increase would be per pay plan, so that you can see which groups of employees, I guess, are getting kind of the most percentage-wise dollar amount. So the general plan for this one, as an example, 349 employees, 143 of them would see an adjustment with this option. The average increase is about 12%. The average dollar amount is about $6,500 of an adjustment. And then those last 3 columns kind of showing there's 10 employees who would get about a 0 to 2% adjustment, 59 who would get about a 2 to 5%, or 74 that would get a 5% plus. So just looking at what this option does for each of those employee groups. Altogether, if you decided to adopt everything with everyone going with option 1, it would come out to about $973,000. No. Does that arrow work? One more. Okay. So this is the same kind of rule, but moving employees to the 25th percentile if their salary is below that threshold. Across all 4 pay plans, if you use this option to adopt, it would be about $2.2 million. Looking down at the bottom, the general pay plan, for an example, this would see an adjustment for 260 employees. The average adjustment would be about 15%, and that dollar amount is about $7,700. So then kind of looking at the other pay plans, public safety, there's 29 employees that would be impacted, for sheriff 11, and for elected 10. So, and then the last option, option 3, yes, it worked. No. Okay. The last option is moving employees to the midpoint of their new proposed range if their salary is below that mark. And so this option, if all 4 pay plans were adopted in this scenario, would be about $4.2 million. Looking at the breakdown down below, of the 349 employees on the general plan, this would have an adjustment to 325 of those employees. It's about a 23% adjustment on average. The dollar amount is about $10,000 on average. And then you can kind of see the rest of the breakdown. It'd be like 292 employees receiving a 5+% adjustment to their salary if it was all adopted this way. So I'll point out these numbers reflect base pay only. So obviously adopting any of these is going to impact your retirement contributions and all of that, and that's not reflected here. This is only base pay. And so just kind of before we get to questions, we urge the county to adopt the new pay plans, the grade assignments. We have collected a lot of feedback to make sure that, grade positions are assigned to grades that are appropriate for nature and level of work across the organization. Pick an implementation scenario that's going to help you achieve your compensation philosophy, but one that's also sustainable, and then continue to do things like this to update and maintain your classification and compensation system.
And Jada, if we look at these options that you have, options 1, and if we were to enact something that was option 1, that to get the people up to minimum that are below minimum, if we did that and we made that hypothetically retroactive June 1st, and then we decided we wanted to budget forward to the 25 percentile going effective, then we would just merely subtract the $973,780 from what the option 2 would be, and that's how much more we'd have to additional budget for.
Essentially,
right?
Yes.
And so, I do have a question with the attorney involved in this as well. Once we have this report tonight, Michael, and do we need a motion or anything to bring this up for consideration for a vote, or do we have to advertise, or is it gotta be put off till our next regularly scheduled sunshine and meeting, which would be August?
Depends on the request for new funding we have to go
Okay,
through.
okay.
Process takes time to advertise.
Advertising.
Say minimally take that normal process of request, sorry. Advertisement based on that request and then action at the next regularly scheduled council meeting, unless there was a special council meeting called.
Okay, thank you. Have questions from council?
Mr. Wright,
Yes.
we make that motion, can we make it for the three options? Then make a vote for that, is that how we can do it?
Yes.
Option 1, 2, and 3, all under the same motion? Or would it be separate motions? Or how do we need to advertise that?
I guess that the safest way is to advertise the largest amount possible that it can be, because you always have the option of phasing that back through amendment or, other council action, but the, hard and fast rule is that it's, whatever it's advertised, that's the maximum it can be without, so the safest option would be, looking at the full phase of all three plans and then, adopting whatever the council sees fit to move forward with.
And that could be even in increments like what we talked about there with, and definitely having the budget committee. And I just wanted to make sure everybody understands the process we've gone through here and since the first of the year is we've tried to roll this out and be transparent and give it to all the department heads. Then we had a meeting with Jada, met with, as she mentioned, approximately 20 department heads. Then we went back, she went back, and then she got us this information. So this is after it's been, and then I want to make sure everybody understands, this information that she shared with us has been adjusted for the timing of it. So it is current to the timing right now, which before some of the other ones aged out, as we'd say. So in all this process, we've had an opportunity, when we shared this, Kara sent this out last week, well, before Memorial Day, she sent this out. So the department heads have had a chance to look at it. We found some inconsistencies and some things we had to change. So, I mean, in any document, there's going to be things. I just noticed on the elected officials, which was just the most recent one you updated, I don't think that we're going to be able to, I wouldn't be able to vote for that one, just because of the council on there. It's, and that's a hard figure because it's based on the hours that we work, so,
Right.
I mean, we may have to adjust.
You can't change the elected officials during the year.
No, I know we can't change it during the year, but if we look at to adopt it for 2024, we'd still have to do some massaging of that. That number is 4 times what we make currently, and I couldn't vote for that. Yeah, so, I mean, we'd have to address those. We're gonna have those kind of things is what I'm saying is,
Correct.
so to get this in front of the council is been a process, so the council is going to, in the public eye, every meeting we've had has been public. So when we do this, as Councilman Norris said, we're gonna have to have that out there and make a motion and go from there for it, so. Anybody else from council have questions for Jada? We've had, she's graced us with her presence here, and so we need to utilize that. Okay, Marie?
So when someone new comes to us from the county, will that be the responsibility then of Kara, like with HR, to assign like a grade based on their experience, things like that? Or how do we go about
Yeah.
with new people, or if there's a change in position or a change in educational status, you know, if they go more training, whatever?
So that would be a function of your pay policies, and I highly recommend that some very good, strict, carefully designed pay policies get put in place. A new person wouldn't get a grade because the position is already in a grade. So
Okay,
they would
okay.
just go to.
Within that range?
Yeah, yeah, so that pay range is like the defined appropriate pay for that job. And where they come in that range, I mean, minimum qualifications and they still have a lot to learn, probably the minimum. They've done that job somewhere else and the learning curve's pretty short. The market midpoint might be most closely reflective of where they should come in.
And just, to see the numbers that would be improved, like how you broke it down on this, that was very helpful. And, I think hopefully people are pleased.
Cheryl, did you want to say anything on this? I know you've had the opportunity to look at this, because we shared it, when we shared it with department heads, we obviously shared it with auditors, so we can look at what the impact would be.
Yeah, I just kind of got it, I apologize, I was on vacation last week in May, and then Kara shared it with me, and I'm going to try to get some calculations out to you quickly. I know that you're looking to see about the minimum of the first thing you wanted to see about for this year, I guess, that would understand. Where that funding would come from, because not everybody comes from general fund. So, I'll get that out to you and get a breakdown for the whole thing for next year, I mean, of the budget. I was gonna try to do, if it's your, for budgets, 25 percentile midpoint, give you a breakdown of what it would actually cost each month.
Yeah, I think that's really
If
important.
that's
that
your
we- It's not just what the total impact is, but how each of the funds, or if they have the funding for each of the separate accounts, that we have to look at that as well.
One last thing. So really, I mean, in looking at this, we still have, some options for this year specifically, whether we, go back to June or however we decide it, is that what we'll discuss then? At the next meeting? Yeah, with the minimum, like just the minimum, even for the people that have been paid under, except you still have to advertise it. Is that
That's right, I mean,
Yeah.
so there are certain requests, related to salaries that have already been turned in, that have already been advertised, that are already ripe for potential action
Okay.
based on that. But any new requests now to turn existing employees' pay up to a new rate would require an advertisement to whatever fund their salary comes from to increase that for the remainder of 2023.
And potentially either a special meeting or August.
Yeah, and anything we do anything we do in the budget wouldn't necessarily be advertised within the budget. So
Right,
that's-
and then,
Yeah.
yeah, the budget process would run its normal course on advertisement and then adoption and approval by the state, for 2024. What I'm
Right.
speaking to is,
Yeah.
yeah.
If anybody else has questions, we'll accept her report, and much, as she said, as the final bullet point, there is adopt the pay policies, administer, and maintain new classifications, compensation plans going forward. We have to have some implementation rules for those new hires, for those people that maybe if, we're gonna be looking at longevity. We have to look at longevity versus if she's had some other options for us. But we ask her to bring back, this is the information that we ask her to compile, and so she has done that.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, those pay policies are ultimately your instructions for how the pay plan works. How existing employees continue to move, how those pay plans themselves get updated. It's just a way to make sure everybody gets treated fairly and gets the same set of rules applied.
yeah, and I appreciate Kara as input and on this with this. She's been very good, and we talk on the cell phone occasionally about this and trying to meet all the needs. So if not, okay.
I'm so sorry. So how often, you said that the best thing, because I think this was the trouble we got in, that we went too long, without an update. What what are we talking about? I know it won't be a full scale, you know, potentially like this, but what should be our, I guess, maintenance plan?
Yeah, you doing a like comprehensive recalibration like this every 5 to 7 years, as long as you're doing that annual maintenance. My big recommendation for that is you need to do general increases to salaries and a market adjustment to update the salaries and the pay plan, so that those starting minimums are moving with the market and you remain being competitive each year.
Okay. And then, I have one more question. I guess this is just a question for the council and maybe for the attorney on this. For the pay policies, does that go strictly through council since it's still financial, or is that something we have to work with the commissioners on, or?
My sense of that is, I mean, it would be definitely the council with input from human resources through the commissioners. I mean, I
So
think,
collaboration.
yeah, I think that human resources would definitely have a role to play in that process, because that's a policy that they're gonna be dealing with and the department heads are gonna be dealing with when they're looking at new people coming in to their
Okay.
area.
Okay, thank you.
You,
All right.
and I'm sure we'll be in touch with you to finalize this.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you. So at this time, we still have elected officials, other officials or agencies of the county, and I had talked to the prosecutor. He has a question for us.
Ladies and gentlemen of the council, Terry Modis, Vigo County Prosecutor. In light of the Baker-Tilly study that's been updated, just wanted to ask the council to consider bringing back our request for raises for the deputy prosecutors that had previously been tabled. Somewhat of an urgent situation. We've had another deputy give us notice that they're leaving, and as you know, we've had positions that are still unfilled, and we have a couple others that are looking for jobs because, as I'd stated previously, Knox County even, they hired someone that we tried to hire, and they paid $20-some thousand more starting than what we were able to pay here. So somewhat of an urgent situation at this point, and so I would ask your consideration for putting our request back on the table. Yeah, my Chief Deputy Rob Roberts is gonna cover those in whenever they're called up.
Have a motion out there that's been tabled, so it is proper to, that we could bring that back up and take action on it at the, we'll be able to take action on it, but we wouldn't be able to do the salary ordinance till August. Is that correct?
No, I believe that request has been advertised.
Oh, it has been advertised.
Yes, so I believe that came in February, March, I'm not positive on the date that came in originally, but it was advertised, as is the process when any request comes in, turned into council for their meeting, tabled at that point, and it just takes a majority vote to bring it back off the table.
Okay.
And I think actually the Baker-Tilly update was higher as far as our salaries than what we're requesting.
Okay.
So because of the urgency, we didn't want to wait for
Right.
the advertising and all that. We may lose some more people, so that's why I'm here tonight.
Yep. Thank you. Anything else in front of the council at this time?
Sure,
Oh.
I just want to ask a question to clear with Terry, because I want to make it, and it's what you're going to bring back up if you want.
Okay.
It was salary ordinance 2023-11.
Yes.
That was to amend the base salaries. Salary ordinance 2023-12, which was their stipends that go along based on what they do.
Yeah.
But then I want to know, are you still bringing back 2023-13, which was for the request of 3 additional?
I think we could deal with that later. Right now, the most urgent thing is the salary, the raises.
I just want to make sure
So
that we get the
would
right
it be
thing in front of the council.
2023-11 and 2023-12 is what you'd be
Yes.
requesting to bring off the table?
Yes.
I just want to make sure that
Okay.
we brought the right.
thank you for your appearance. Yeah, sure. I do.
Hey,
Counsel-
Sheriff, does 11 and 12 increase the trial deputy also? Because I think I had it 10, 11, and 12. I could be wrong, but I think that's what I had written down.
I will double check it. If it does, I'll make sure that's.
Okay, thank you.
Marie has.
Mr. Modisa, I just have a quick question. Will this impact if we do continue to support and get these additional prosecutors at this raise, get people processed faster through the courts and things, impacting jail numbers, I assume?
I mean, it has to help, there's no doubt about it. I
Okay.
mean, right now, I mean, we are overloaded per person with cases.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Prosecutor Modisette? All right, thank you.
President Thacker,
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to untable and bring back before the council 2023-11, 2023-12, possibly 2023-10, back before the council so that we can vote on it next Tuesday.
All those having to do with the salary.
Yes, yep. So that way we can get them into a position where they're not losing employees at this point, maybe not quite so overloaded.
The motion's been made, is there a second? Second by Nancy. Motion's been made and seconded, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. So that motion will be in effect, and then that will be on the agenda for next Tuesday. And we will get, the auditor's office will get with us the cost impacts and make sure that we have all encompass those. Thank you, and appreciate your patience and working through the process. Okay. Any other elected officials, other officials, or agencies of the county would like to speak at this time? Okay, not, then I will go through this task of the first readings. First readings summarize reference for the proposal of ordinance and resolutions. Number one, Resolution 2023-7, E-Tech Lithium Separator LLC, a 10-year personal property abatement. Number two, Resolution 2023-8, Intech Lithium Separator LLC, 10-year real property tax abatement. Number three, Resolution 2023-9, Wabash Valley Resources LLC, 10-year personal tax abatement. Number four, Resolution 2023-10, Wabash Valley Resources LLC, 10-year real property tax abatement. Number five is additional appropriation 2023-28, drug-free community operating expenses. Number six, additional appropriation 2023-29, juvenile court contractual services. Number seven, additional appropriation 2023-30, courts legal services. Number eight, additional appropriation 2023-31, Vigo County Health Department vehicles. Number nine, additional appropriation 2023-32, Vigo County Health Department new equipment. Number 10, additional appropriation 2023-33, edit. This is the Commissioner's special event request. Number 11, additional appropriation 2023-34, ARPA grant fund professional services. Number 12, additional appropriation 2023-35, ARPA grant fund Indiana State University project. Number 13, additional appropriation 2023-36, ARPA grant reimbursement hospital benefits. Number 14, additional appropriation 2023-37, prosecutor supplies, contractual services, trial investigations, office furniture. Number 15, additional appropriation 2023-38, infractional deferral law enforcement grants. Number 16, additional appropriation 2023-11 clerk, out of series transfer. Number 17, addition, public safety lit, optional for distribution of units for distribution in 2024. Number 18, annual tax abatement compliance reviews. Those include the first reading of summary references, proposed ordinance and resolutions. Next, we have number 5 item is reports from committees. We heard from Baker Tilly today. The only other committee we have is the committee for the budget committee, and it hasn't convened yet this year, so we will be looking for that in the future. Number 6, resolution ordinance other than appropriations. Number 1, first one we have up is resolution 2023 for the discussion of the E-Tech Lithium Separator LLC 10-year proposal. It is on our page 5 of our packet. Tax abatement. And Mr. Shagley.
Good evening, Mr. President, fellow members of the council. My name is Richard Shagley. I'm with the law firm of Wright, Shagley & Lowry. And tonight I'm here on behalf of Intech Lithium Separator LLC. I have 2 representatives from Intech with me. Excuse me. I have Kim Medford, who's the president, and I have Larry Keith, who's the CEO. They're on the West Coast, and they were not able to attend this meeting, but I do anticipate we'll see them in the very near future in Vigo County. So they are here to, if you have any questions, to answer them. So what I will do, just so they can participate and it'll be exciting, I'll put them right there. So tonight I'm asking tonight for a 10-year 100% abatement. And the reason I'm asking for that is I feel very lucky that we have Intech wanting to come to Vigo County. They started this process a few years ago, hired a national company to find them a location. And after weeding it down, they saw something of us here in Vigo County. And as a result, they reached out to Mr. Witt. Mr. Witt provided them an incentive package to lure them to Vigo County. And part of that incentive package was a 10-year abatement for both personal and real. And what Intech is intending to do for Vigo County is they're looking at an investment on the personal property side of $1.2 billion. And on the real side, $224 million investment. And with that comes about 600 construction jobs they anticipate over about a 3-year period. Then, once the construction's complete, about 640 full-time jobs with about a $38 million annual payroll, along with about a $14 million per year benefits package. I've lived here in Vigo County for a long time, and I think this is a great thing for our community. So I guess I'm asking for 5 things tonight. I have 4 abatements in front of you this evening. And that 5th thing that I'm asking for is, I know you don't normally meet in July, but I'm asking you to please have a special call for these 4 abatements. And why it's especially important for the Intech is they have some boxes they want to cross off, so they can close on this property, so they can start construction and get this project going. As of today, they don't have the property. They haven't closed because there's certain things they want to have in line before they do that, and one of those things is the real and personal property abatements. And in the construction world, 30 days is a lot of time. And as a result, that's why I'm asking tonight for you to have a special call. I guess I got a little ahead of myself, assuming at next week's regular meeting, you approve the resolution. I would then, I guess I'm just forewarning you that next week I'm going to ask you for a special call meeting in July which would give us all an opportunity to be together in July, which, you know. So, that was the funny part of my presentation. Okay. I would be happy to answer any questions you have. I do know they've engaged Clayco, which is a very large national construction company. I also know that representatives of Intech have met with local union representatives. I get the impression everybody's pretty excited about the prospects of Intech coming to Vigo County. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
I guess, what, I've heard a lot of other numbers thrown around. What other kind of incentive packages did they get here? The state gave them, we know that they've got some federal money, and they've got some state money, and so can you just share that with us so we?
I don't have the full list
Oh.
of incentives, but I will have those for you at next week's meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay.
But I do have Steve Witt here.
We have
I'd
a
love to
resident
give you
expert, yes.
Steve Witt, President, Terre Haute Economic Development Corporation. Intech is going on the east end of the former Pfizer property that we call the Vigo County Industrial Park 2, Roman numeral 2. So we've offered them it's approximately 340 acres of that property for $1 an acre. The 10-year tax abatements on real and personal property, as Richard outlined, subject to council approval. And also $2 million for infrastructure improvements that we have on hand with the County Redevelopment Commission. Yeah. As far as state incentives, they were in the, I think the $8 million range, just a variety of things. And then I don't want to speak on behalf of Larry and Kim, but they are getting federal funding. I know they're receiving $200 million of federal grant money through the Inflation Reduction Act. Our first visit with Kim and Larry back in early October, they flew into our airport. Kim had to stay back at the airport because she was on a Zoom call meeting with President Biden and Secretary Granholm. So it's we're very excited about this project. Obviously, it's going to be a great thing for the community. And it's going to be a great return on the investment of what relatively small incentives I think we're putting into the project compared to what Intech's bringing in terms of investment.
And then when that $200 million with the IRA, that is contingent with, there are some requirements on that for the help that they use on that. They will be at a common or prevailing wage.
Correct. Davis-Bacon wage rates, prevailing wage rates, yes. That's a requirement.
Thank you.
If there's no other questions, if you'd like to introduce the next ordinance, or if you just want to do it both at the same time.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
you may have hit it briefly, Richard, but what are we looking at in terms of commitment for local labor, or local companies?
Well, Clayco signature, as Council President Thacker mentioned, this is going to be Davis-Bacon.
Right.
And like I also mentioned, they've already met with local leaders of our local unions. We intend this to be I'm not going to stand this here, it's going to say it's 100%, but it's going to be a super majority of will be union labor.
Oh, excuse me.
It has to be, it's Davis-Bacon controlled, so.
Richard, let me just say that Joe Bolt called me a couple of weeks ago and said that Kim had called him, and he about dropped dead because Intech called him and said, "I hope you've got enough people to provide workers for this job because we're going to use union people on this job." Joe called and said, "Do you think it was really her?" And they are thrilled to pieces that this company is coming to our community. That doesn't happen very often.
One thing I'd add briefly, Aaron, is it was soon after the announcement, just a week or two, one of the Intech representatives was in town with a representative of Clayco. I provided them a list of our local contractors, and not a complete list, but our more significant ones. And they met with many of our local companies. They were very impressed. I think it's again, I don't want to speak on behalf of Larry and Kim, but it's their philosophy to give back to the community and to do as much as they can in the community. And why go outside the community when we have such expertise here? That's their philosophy. So I think everyone's going to be very pleased in that regard. But it's such a gigantic project, you just can't do it all with the local. There's no way. So that's where Clayco comes into the equation.
And in my discussions with other trades, they all have this Intech project part of their future, and they realize the significance and what this will mean, having this many construction jobs for such a long period of time. I think there's from the trades that I work with, there's an excitement of what this could bring to our community. And not just our community, but our surrounding community.
Aware of that they have had an invitation extended to them to come and visit the local building trades.
Yeah.
And
They've
so
talked to the
hopefully,
president, I believe.
then when they do come in the near future, they'll take advantage of that and,
Yeah.
and meet those people face to face. I know they've met some individuals, but they'd like them to see them all, and they have a feel for that.
Yeah. Mr. President, that was Resolution 23.
Richard, I got a question for you.
Yes, sorry.
Just to clarify, because, we hear from them, but I remember being at, when they announced, our work on this. From what I understand too, this will be something very state-of-the-art, kind of put us on the radar on, the type of energy and product that they're creating, really nationally, because there's not that many plants like this. And I think, the potential for tapping into our, specifically two of our universities that have technology, building that relationship. And additional, I felt like they were very forthcoming with wanting to work and reach with people who
Absolutely.
are interns and so on. And I just, want to make sure, obviously I heard that because I was at the meeting, but I want to make sure as we go into this and making decisions, what a big deal this company really is.
It's $1.5 billion investment in Vigo County, with 600 construction jobs over 3 years and 640 full-time jobs after that. This is a huge thing for Vigo County.
And is that from what I understood, is
There's
that phase one?
They have a lot of dirt out there.
Yeah.
With a lot, and there are so many, and this goes along with what I'm here for next. There is so much money out there for whether it's batteries or whether it's clean energy, whatever. And we're in a good spot here in Vigo County. We competed with the country, and they chose us. And as Mr. Witt stated, what they're bringing us is nothing compared to what we're giving them. They're bringing a great thing to Vigo County, and I hope you see that and agree with me that they deserve 2 10-year abatements.
Thank you.
Mr. President, my presentation is very similar for Resolution 2023-08 as it was for 07. Would you like me to do it again, or do you trust me that it's?
I would accept it as similar presentation to 2023.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on to 2023-09, while you're up there. So thank them for attending via Zoom. And this one would start for the council members on page 39 of our packet.
Good evening, Mr. President, fellow members of the council. My name is Richard Shagley. I'm with the law firm of Wright, Shagley & Lowry, and tonight I'm here on behalf of Wabash Valley Resources LLC. I'm here tonight. I think I was here about 3 months ago, kind of giving you a heads up that I was going to be here in the near future. And here I am. I'm representing them on the 2 resolutions, 2023-09 and 10. I'm here tonight asking for a 10-year, 100% abatement for both the real and personal. The personal property investment is about $700 million for phase 1, and the real property investment is about $600 million. Along that, they're anticipating 360 construction jobs over about 30 months, and then about 107 full-time jobs following that, with an average payroll of about $13.5 million. Along with that full-time, there's also the maintenance of this facility. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to visit the facility before, and I hope you don't ask too many technical questions. I do have Mr. Williams here, who's one of the members of Wallace Valley Resources. If you do have any technical questions, it's a little more complicated than I admit that I can understand. But what they are doing is they're going to be doing something at this facility that is nowhere else in the country. They have been working on this for several years. This is a massive project with many moving parts, and we're now at the stage where they're asking for some assistance. They're completing their funding packet, and as a result, I am here tonight asking you for a 10-year, 100% abatement for both personal and real. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
I would like to add to that, just because I've had some knowledge of this, that they have been to the Wabash Valley Building Trades. They have signed a agreement,
National
and
Bank,
so
yes.
there is no question on that as far as the utilization of that. Mr. Williams is a very intelligent individual who got his education just down the road here at Rose-Hulman. That is an existing plant that has been tried to find the right purpose for it since we built that in '95. It was a $500 million DOE project in 1995. And so to be able to bring life back to that and to be able to do something with clean energy, hydrogen, or with the anhydrous and the carbon sequestration, I know they've worked a lot with the state legislators to be able to get that, to be able to do that on that site.
Any other questions?
Mr. Commissioner has,
Oh.
Mr. Morse has a
Sorry.
question for us.
Mr. President,
Yes.
Council, may I make a
Sure.
comment or two?
Yes.
Okay. If I'm not mistaken, this project was started in 2016. This company came to, and at some point, not too long after that, they came to the council for an agreement for special bonding capability, which was adopted by Vigo County Council. Okay, they came to, in 2016, promising Vigo County several hundred jobs, 2016. So I would make two suggestions when you consider abatement. One, you might want, I would review their financials before I would consider this abatement. And two, I would have a date, as Mr. Shagley said, 30 days in the construction business is a long time. And I would have a drop-dead date of, if you would issue this abatement, of when this plant started in operation, and have a clawback agreement if it did not, and if it didn't do that. So thank you very much for your consideration.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think those are valid concerns. I know that we have on our agenda today, we have our very last item, as I read under is the annual review, which we have that in place for anytime we do give abatements, and we need to make sure that we do follow up on those and make sure that they are in compliance. So I think that's a part of our challenge as elected officials that we have. Yes, sir.
And I can't stress enough, this project has been going on a while. As I mentioned before, there are a lot of moving parts. What they're wanting to do hasn't been done before. And as a result, they're dealing with numerous state and federal agencies. And that is not a fast process. And as a result, this project has taken a while. I think Mr. Williams would agree with me at this, and it can be frustrating at times, but they are at the mercy of a lot of federal and state agencies in the review and approval process. But fortunately, because I'm here tonight, as you can see, we are getting closer to that goal line. So.
I think that's Is there any other questions from the council? Shaggy?
Sorry, I always do. You know, I always do. My concern when I read over this, and I know it's exciting to be the first, and, you know, to kind of stay the art, and same thing with Intech. Intech's an established company. It's been around, you know, it's national. I think that's my biggest concern in looking at this, at how new it is. So I know it's been in the process for years. I've been following it with the lawmakers at the state. I know it was a big deal when it passed this legislative season. My biggest question would be, now that those check marks have been put in place, is the capital, is the funding, are we ready to roll once we get through the red tape, or is there, you know, are we still having to work for some funding and things like that as a new company?
I don't have the funding answer, but Water Resources is made up of, it's not just a group of people, it's a group of entities that are coming together because they each kind of bring something to the table. And they figured out the technology and the science, and they came together to start this. And as I mentioned, it's about $750 million, and there's a process of raising those funds, and it's not an easy process, especially when you're selling something that hasn't been done before. But they are close. I can't say exactly where they are in that process. I have not been made aware of that information. They've asked me to come here tonight because part of the package is just kind of showing, you know, it's a puzzle, and these abatements are part of that puzzle to make a pretty picture on the wall that keeps everybody engaged and part of this project. So I can't say, you know, we're going to break ground in September, and I can't say that they have 100% funding at this point. And I'm not too sure they want, if they even want to disclose that because of the certain ramifications because of that. But what I can tell you is they've asked me to come here tonight to present to you 2 resolutions asking for a real tax abatement and a personal property tax abatement, both for 10 years, both for 100%.
Additional questions?
Thank you very much.
Next item we have on is resolution reallocation 2023-11 clerk, officer, transfer, bill 67.
Good evening. Leanna Moore, Chief Deputy Clerk. I am just asking to move some money from one fund to another fund. The money's already been appropriated. We just need to purchase some additional, an additional item for our election equipment. The equipment we have now is breaking down. It's hard for the staff to use. It's actually kind of a hazard for them to load into the trucks once we have to load the equipment to go to the vote centers. I've sent you a picture of kind of what it's gonna look like, and we need 8 of these, and they are around $1,400 a piece. I'm asking to transfer $12,500 from our computer supplies account to the equipment new on the election board fund. Like I said, the money's already been appropriated. We just need to move it from one place to another. Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now we go to public safety lit. Options for distribution to units for distribution in 2024. And I believe Cheryl is going to, Lattimore Deputy Auditor will speak on this.
Yes, this is the request that we've brought each year. This is required by the Department of Local Government and Finance if the council chooses to include the township fire departments to receive any of the public safety lit for the following year. So determining the allocation rate that you want to get is the first process, and then we'll bring back and modify the actual resolution in August to include it for 2024. In the past, you've done the 65% break the 35% levy, but I did give you those options. The total amount comes to about $294,907.67, maybe rounding a penny, 68 per penny, making it even clear.
And those options are shown on page 171, or in between 170 and 171, actually. Yep, there it is. Let's see. So those options are ahead of us. Any questions for Cheryl?
One quick question.
Yes.
Did you have the opportunity to look at the previous years and see if the percentages were consistent over time?
Yeah, it's calculated the exact same way as it has been in the.
No, I mean, I'm sorry, I mean the run percentage for each individual, is it?
Yes, it's
Is
all
it close?
Yeah. And I will tell you, Councilman Lima, it is increased for this year. And that's because we base it on the runs from the prior year. And then like the certified cadget that they receive for 2023. And that's like their levy. And their levies were higher for cadget, so that kind of increased their amount for public safety also.
Thank you.
Yeah, I did check those to make sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then number 7 on that is, why Cheryl's got the mic still, is the annual tax abatement compliance reviews that I mentioned earlier.
And that's actually in a separate packet that you.
Yeah, that's a separate packet that she provided for us.
I had to get all those together for you. And these are the ones that have filed their CF1s currently. And what you do is go through these, and next week you should take a vote on whether they are in substantial compliance or not substantial compliance. If you choose that they're not in substantial compliance, we have 45 days to issue a letter to them to bring them back in for a hearing to explain any questions that you have regarding that. The top sheet is a spreadsheet like you've had in the past and been updated based on the CF1s, but you do have a copy of all the CF1s for yourself to see, and it kind of does break it down. I will tell you the majority of them, I'll say they're all in compliant. I mean, you have one that is kind of down by maybe 2 employees, but overall it's not.
Yeah, that's a key word on being substantial.
Yeah, being in substantial compliance with it.
So we have those packets for our viewing pleasure for our next meeting. So any questions
And if
for?
you have any questions, feel free to call me in between.
Yes.
Can we get a list of those who have not yet submitted?
Yes, I'm working and had made contact with several of those. So, yeah, I can get you a list.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would feel like if they haven't submitted, that's not a very substantial compliance, so that we do need to know that, that they have even.
I will note, because I've been working with the assessor because of them turning in their 103 and 104s also. And just from my experience on the city side, for some reason this year it's been a struggle on all, whether it's city or county side.
Just in the submissions themselves,
Uh-huh.
that time and manner?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions before we move on? Okay, next we'll go to number 7 of our agenda item, ordinance relating to appropriations. And the first one we have in that is additional appropriation 2023-28 drug-free community operating expenses. It's on page 71, and I believe Councilman Thies has a letter to read from Mr. It's also in our packet, like I said, 71.
People eyes here. Yes, I have a letter, and I'll just read. what Mr. Halleck sent. He said, "I apologize for not being in attendance this evening. Cammie Reed from the Drug-Free Vigo County Coordinator and Iron San Antonio attending the CADCA's National Coalition Academy on Developing Community Coalitions to Better Affect Change and Drug, Alcohol, and Tobacco Use Among Our Youth." The request this evening is for the annual drug interdiction fees that are collected by the courts via a state statute and administered by the Indiana Criminal Justice Institute. These dollars consist of rollover dollars from 2021 and fees collected in 2022. The fees collected in 2023 will then be applied to programming in 2024. It's important to note that these are not taxpayer dollars, but money from folks in the community that went to court because of drug or alcohol charges. Funds from these collections are distributed between 4 categories: prevention, treatment, law enforcement, and administration. He will be in attendance at the next Tuesday meeting should there be any questions. And he thanked me for reading this. So it's a process that we go through. This for the last few years. I mean, obviously this is just my 3rd year on it, but it's just one of those things usually in June that we go through for his organization.
So the benefit of having Marie read it, she won't ask questions.
I'm not. I'm good. I know the board. I know.
Oh, and she knows I say that in jest.
I'll get him back. Don't worry.
I love
I'll
that
get
she
him
asks
back.
questions. So, any questions for Marie?
I have no
Marie?
questions.
So, okay. So now I gotta go back to this is such a thick book that I have to flip back and forth here. So the next one we have is, number 2, additional appropriation 2023, -29 juvenile court contractual services on our page 72. And we have a representative to address this today.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen of the council. My name's Daniel Kelly, the juvenile court magistrate. Thanks for having me here this evening. I think you may recall that we came to you last year to get an appropriation for a program to mediate some of our child needed services and termination of parental rights cases because of our docket. Those cases have deadlines. They have to be brought to trial quickly by state law. Otherwise, if there's a child removed from the home for a period of time that exceeds that for which there has to be a trial, the parents can demand that the child be returned to them even if the child's in a dangerous predicament. And we, as you probably know from other things before you, the juvenile court has about 3 times the volume of cases that the state law recommends for one court. This mediation program that we've had, though, has really been a godsend. Besides the hard work of our staff, this program is keeping us afloat, frankly. The mediator is one gentleman, and he came highly recommended. He so far has a great track record. He's settling 75% of the cases that we send to mediation. So the way it works is he comes over to the annex here, uses the space in the CASA offices, and schedules one mediation after another through lunchtime and everything. They each last an hour. And it's been very effective at settling the cases. And besides just settling cases and keeping our docket freer, another benefit that we found is that parents are, when they're mediating these, are participating in the resolution of their case. They're able to have a say from the outset at what kind of services they think might be helpful to deal with whatever issues may have got DCS at their door. So I'm really thrilled with this program. And so we were hoping originally that we might have another court coming and wouldn't really need the mediator so much. But now, in light of the fact that that's going to be put off for a little while at least, I think that continuing to fund this would be crucially important, and we'd certainly appreciate your consideration. Any questions?
Very, very nice presentation.
Thank you.
Next one we have in front of us is additional appropriation. Between them is for the additional appropriation 2023-31 Vigo County Health Department vehicles. Joan? Did I skip one? I did, my bad. I had two court ones in a row. Additional appropriation 2023-30, courts, legal services, I'm sorry.
I thought you were
Judge-
upset about a
No.
court decision I may have made or something. I don't know. Sorry
It's-
about that.
It was,
Um,
if anything, it'd be the tie. That would probably be the only. Oh.
That's
I
okay.
love it.
At least I have a tie on.
Yes,
today.
that is, very good. That's very good.
So, we've talked about this. We sent a letter this past month. This is just something that's required. The people coming to court, it's tough enough for people to come and they're just scared to death, so many of them. And when you have to speak another language, it just makes it even more difficult. Largely, we're dealing with people that have Spanish as their first language. We have a lot of people who are hearing impaired, and so we need American Sign Language and other languages, Arabic and others that come through. We've had Chinese and some others, but it's just something that we're required to do. We had asked for $7,000 this last year, and we have received a grant for many years. Judge Bruno started that. Judge Reddy's kind of taken that over, and we've used up that $3,000. We were given $3,000 by the council, and that's almost entirely gone. So far, we've used $5,843.26. We're requesting $6,000 for the rest of this year, and hopefully that will get us through. So, not asking for a large amount, but it's something that's just necessary for us to have.
Does anyone have questions? Yes, Councilman Loudon.
You said you had 20 questions for me tonight, right?
Cut it short. No, what is the primary language that you have that you see most often in courts?
Spanish, well, English, and then
Right,
Spanish.
but outside of Spanish, that's the obvious one. Is there another one that you really see?
Well, I
quite
said the
often?
American Sign Language, so we've had a lot of people that are hearing impaired, or they just cannot speak. So those are two of the main ones. We've had some others. I tried to limp through once with the Mandarin Chinese, and I realized that my Chinese is a little rusty. So even I need to get the interpreter because it's so technical. And we use what's called a hotline many times, and where we can call and get them on the line, and that's been very effective. But sometimes, when you're trying to go over a plea agreement, we need somebody there in person, and that's where it gets a little bit more expensive.
Thank you.
And Judge Newton, wouldn't there also there's some federal regulations that require that we provide this? It's not just
Absolutely.
something that we're doing
Yeah.
out of the goodness of our heart. These are federal regulations that
We have to do
yeah,
this.
it's a requirement that we have to do.
Yeah, we have to do it, so we're saying, hey, look, sorry, and we're trying to keep this down, but, it is what it is.
Sure. Thank you. Any additional questions? Marie?
I just want to say, having parents that both spoke another language as their first language, even if they've been here a while, like my parents had, I know my mom in particular in stressful situations, which, court would probably be somewhat stressful for some people. The language can sometimes really have a difficult thing, especially with that second language. So, it is something we absolutely need to make sure that everyone understands what they're going through. And I
Yes,
appreciate that.
absolutely. But your father could be very expressive in his
Yes, he
French, as I
could.
recall.
He was a little better with it,
Yes.
yeah.
All right, thank you all.
And Judge, I like your tie.
Okay.
I didn't say I didn't like it. I just thought it was, just a attention
I'll wear a
getter.
different one tomorrow.
Okay. Additional appropriation 2023-31, Beagle County Health Department. She has two of them up here.
Here we go.
Sorry, got excited to have you up here, Joni.
Joni Wise, Beagle County Health Department.
Mike Graylis, Beagle County Health Department.
I just want to remind everybody that pocket translators are available for all county departments. We have several within the Beagle County Health Department. School Corporation turned us on to them. They can interpret over 400 languages. I sent that out to all users. They're always available. We have one in Vital Statistics, one in our clinic, and one in the main office, because we deal with so many people that speak different languages. So and it also helps us with our compliance. All right, now what I'm really here for. All
Page
right.
173 on ours.
So, I've been before you over the last year in regards to the reimbursement that the Vigo County Health
Thank you.
Department received for administering the COVID vaccine. And altogether, it's been $671,790. And of that, we've been able to give $300,000 of that to our local fire districts. We were also able to give $137,000 of that, over $137,000, for the Parks Department, for their trail program. Last summer, we came to you and we asked you to replace 2 of our trucks that were over 24 years old. And what we find is a lot of our fleet is old. And the last 10 to 15 years, everyone's budget has been so limited that we didn't really have a good replacement program or the funding where we have with the mechanisms that have been in place from COVID to replace some of those older vehicles. Our vehicles could be used by environmental health. They could be used by the Vector Control Division to treat catch basins. Eventually, they make it down to the level of being a truck that's mounted with the spray equipment for mosquitoes. Our vehicles are used to take us to and from conferences that are out of the county, but they're utilized for a lot of different purposes, and we're hoping that you will consider appropriation for 2 more vehicles to replace vehicles in our aging fleet.
Thank you. Does anyone have questions for Health Department? Okay. All right. Now then, while you're still there, let's talk about additional appropriation 2023-32 Health Department new equipment.
Yes, we're asking for money for a forklift. Vector Control has, every year we get delivered to us approximately 55-gallon drums, which we have to maneuver off the pallets by hand, which means tilting 550 pounds towards you, rolling them off the pallet to get them set on the ground. A little dangerous, so I thought we had the money, so I asked Joni if we could possibly get a forklift.
And this too would come out of the reimbursement that the health department received for administering the COVID vaccine.
Yes.
We could also use it for our tar amnesty program because we get some very large tars during our tar amnesty program. A lot of the farmers bring in some of the large tractor tars with rims on them. A little heavy the older we get, I'll admit.
And they have that that is available. I mean, that's not an order, long lead item.
No, it is available.
That is available. Any questions for Health Department on new equipment?
That forklift is a good idea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your consideration.
I move this to the commissioners, requesting for additional favors for 2023 added special event.
Council people, thank you. This is a request to participate in the Terre Haute Air Show next year. $25,000 appropriated now, and hopefully $25,000 for the annual budget. It's approximately $650,000 production. The city has agreed to participate for $50,000, and the rest of it is being raised by sponsorships and et cetera here. So the request is for that.
Now, did that sponsorship, I see you have a packet here in the back, doesn't fit in one of those categories.
Well, I didn't agree to anything. Do you think that the county would have a representation out there, a tent or something? I wouldn't be surprised if that couldn't be arranged.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Additional appropriation 2023-34 professional services, also. Commissioner, question.
Good evening, Council, President Thacker, council members. Thank you for having us tonight. This is a request for $500,000 that should cover a majority of the administrative fees to Baker Tilly and RJL Solutions. About 2 months ago, finally, we entered into a contract with RJL Solutions to cover all the work they have done that they have pretty much yet to be received. Other than the $5,000 a month, we are contractually obligated to pay them for the year of 2023. So $309,000 of that $500,000 will go to RJL Solutions for all the meetings they have held, will continue to hold, and continue to work with stakeholders throughout the community as they work to come to you folks for a presentation. Councilman Thacker did bring it to my attention. I had thought, and it's my mistake, I did not attach the contracts. I will get those to you tomorrow that we have in front of us. Both have been acted on by the commissioners. Baker Tilly's contract was more, it was broke down by the level of person that will be working with us to give us the questions to the answers that we may have. So there's a little bit of discrepancy in the cost there, but you'll be able to understand that a little bit better once you get the contract. RJL is pretty much cut and dry. It's, I believe, 3% of the full amount of money we got to cover all of the things that they have done so far. Betsy, Victoria, Rachel, Ryan, everybody from RJL has pretty much been involved in something in some type of way with all these ARPA requests. So we're confident that this will cover RJL, Baker Tilly, possibly even, we had talked about working with United Way and Thrive. Some of those, just being fully transparent, could be 5%, hopefully no more than that. So we're hopeful that this $500,000 will still cover that. If not, we may have to make additional appropriation requests kind of from the same area later on, but we don't know or have that application process for Thrive for the housing initiatives laid out yet or in front of us, so we don't know what that administrative fee might be, and also United Way is very close to being finished with their application process as well. So, any questions?
So the administrative fees for United Way, what would that be pertaining to?
It would be for them to go through the applications that they receive, like for maybe Terra Foods Cooperative. They've been one that's been very vocal about maybe receiving some funding of $1 million we have, hopefully, we'll give to United Way if you guys approve it. United Way will have to go through all those applications. The commissioners will set out certain, did they receive something during the coronavirus? Did they receive some type of aid there? If they did, check that box. Maybe we don't want to give them money because, I'm not saying this is what we're going to do, but because they've already received aid, maybe we want to look at the next person that has not received aid to get them the money. So those administrative fees cover those people that they have to pay to go through those applications and things like that.
Thank you.
Trust me, I've asked for 0%. I'm not getting very far.
Trust me.
Especially a nonprofit.
Trust me.
Trust me.
I have a question. Is this the final amount then for, I know like the Baker Tilly, they've been kind of doing it more hourly on how we use them. But in regards to RJL, is this
That's
like
it. That's
covers
it for
it?
RJL.
This is
Yep.
done?
That's it. That will pay them. And honestly, we should have paid them a year ago a pretty significant amount of money because they have worked so much for us just off that $5,000 that we were contractually obligated to pay them a month to lobby and do things for us legislatively and stuff like that. So this is outside of that scope of work that they traditionally do. So yeah, this will pay them in whole for the remainder of until we have to have the ARPA expenses expended.
Okay, so I guess I just want to make sure too, we're kind of paying ahead as they're still doing work for us, correct?
We have not received one invoice from them yet. So
Okay.
we're gonna play catch up for a little bit and then they will bill us as new things approach.
Okay, so there could be more on
No,
top of this?
no, the
but-
309,000 is what we will pay them in total. But we need to catch up to where we should be and then pay them, start paying them monthly for the meetings.
And
things they have.
and I understand, I mean, people deserve the money that they've worked for and so on. And I know, talking to friends with other counties and stuff, consultants have to, a lot of people need to know what they're doing to make sure we do it right.
Sure, yeah.
I just want to make sure that, we're pretty set on the percentages and what's going out there, because obviously the biggest amount of money I want to go
Yeah.
to the projects.
Yeah,
and
the
things.
great thing is, Maria, is we are allowed to use ARPA funds to pay for these administrative costs instead of taking from county general or other places. So we want to make sure we focus on using that ARPA money to pay those people instead of taking from the coffers that we have within.
Yeah, and that would hurt counties that didn't
Yeah.
have the funding, or
Right.
the cities too.
And we have gone above and beyond most counties in identifying things to spend ARPA money on, and also making sure they are good, correct, and able to be funded from certain buckets and stuff like that. So it's been good.
To the point, I just, myself, I have a hard time, and I want to make sure that we have contractual, that we know what we're spending the money for, and that's what the question is asking. So that'll help to get that. I think the thing that may be a little heartache for some of us is to approve the expenditure for money for somebody that we haven't appropriated any money for them yet.
Sure.
That's for me, that's the thing. I'm going to have to review and look through, so haven't made a decision yet. So.
Hopefully you can work through that.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Schweitzer? All right. Thank you. The next one we have a presentation here from Additional Appropriation 2023 ARPA Grant Indiana State Project.
President Thacker, council members, I'm Deborah Curtis. I have the honor of serving as president of Indiana State University. I am here tonight to chat with you about a really important topic for Vigo County and the surrounding areas, and that's child care and early childhood development and care. I'm going to test this out. Oh, awesome. It's alive. I want to introduce some of my colleagues who are here who will also participate should you have questions in detail tonight. Diane McKee is our fine and excellent CFO at Indiana State University. Chris Olson, our awesome provost, who is here with us, and then Rex Kendall, the President's Office Chief of Staff. You've seen him in other roles at Indiana State, but each of these individuals have contributed greatly to this work that we're doing right now. Access to high-quality child care in Vigo County and the surrounding areas has for a very long time been a challenge, but we are not unique. It's a challenge throughout the nation, and it has pretty much been exacerbated by the pandemic as well. It's certainly a reason why many workers are not able to fully engage in the workforce, and that's an incredibly important piece for Vigo County and the surrounding area. Families are struggling to find the needed services. We have quite a few services in the community, and nearly all of us have wait lists for families who need these services. The American Rescue Plan Act was designed to provide that direct support to communities to be able to address some of these needs. And so this request is for ARPA funds that will directly impact that workforce development by providing those families with the care that they need. Indiana State University has an existing early childhood education center. I noticed when I came back to Indiana State 5.5 years ago that we're pretty landlocked in that facility there. We don't have room for growth. We have a long wait list there. But we have a high-quality program, and it's accredited by the National Association for the Education of Young Children and licensed by the Department of Family and Children's Services in the state of Indiana. Currently, it's located at Farrington and 3rd Streets, and it is at capacity serving 86 children. There is no room to grow at that spot. Currently, the wait list is about 60 to 70 children. We maintain and support this work because the community needs it. And I want to point out that the university does not make money on this project. This is a service in our community. Frankly, and Diane will tell you herself, we're tickled if we could even break even. We don't usually. But we consider it important to be able to provide that service and the high quality piece. So there'll be two parts to this, not only a facility improvement, but also then developing a community-based strategic plan for how we serve beyond this facility. So the university's commitment here is a building. Now, Chestnut Building is a 4-story, 40,000 square foot brick building that stands at 749 Chestnut Street. It opened in 1971 as the School of Nursing building, And several years ago, as we were able to move nursing into the newly remodeled and expanded College of Health and Human Services, we've been using this space as frankly transition space as we've had renovation projects on campus. And we determined in this process that we should find other space for the transition space and dedicate this space to be able to grow our capacity for the child care programs. It also is, and I'll show you in a little bit, an example of where it's located, right next to the By College of Education, which is really significant. The current value of that building is estimated at $9.3 million, and the university is committed to using that space for this purpose. Of course, it's designed as a college academic building. So for those accreditation purposes, we absolutely must retrofit the space to fit young children and infants to be able to offer this on that spot. The estimated cost for the renovation of the first 2 floors is $6.5 million, and you will see in the materials provided to you that there is that cost opinion from our architects who have studied this for us and given us a good estimate of what that means. Right now, we believe to be able to renovate those first 2 floors, we'll be able to expand our capacity to about 145 children. But remember, that's just a beginning for the community. Future plans will be to find further ways to support the renovation of the remaining 4 floors and frankly bring this up to a high-level research laboratory spot. I will tell you, because we've engaged with all 4 of the college and post-secondary presidents in the area, certainly for 3 of us, there's also a need for expanded clinical space. But for Rose-Hulman, who does not offer these programs, they certainly have a need to be able to attract and retain highly qualified faculty who look for these kinds of high-quality research-based child care programs. So they are all in support of us growing this endeavor. We will continue to pursue different funding sources. As was mentioned earlier, I was interested to hear the analogy because I intended to use it. It's a puzzle. It's a puzzle to put these pieces together to already do this. But ISU has already begun work with an architect in the early design phases to be able to move forward. So that puzzle that I talked about really looks like this right now, and it's all in progress. The READY grant, we were thrilled to see that we were included in that piece for $1 million towards this project. Of course, it has matching requirements. We're asking this council to support us with ARPA dollars, an additional 3.0, which would then meet some of those requirements for matching. The City of Terre Haute, we will be presenting to soon, the City Council, asking for $1 million in their ARPA funds. And then we have in action right now the planning phase of a grant from the Lilly Endowment, who's been a wonderful supporter of Indiana State University in their community collaboration grant opportunity. We did receive the initial planning grant dollars, and I'm going to say something about that in a moment. That would bring us to the required $6.5 million alongside the university's commitment of the facility over $9 million. So our vision for this, and you have a document in your packet that I'd ask you at your leisure to read, but it's from the Brookings Institution talking about what a difference it makes to have high quality early childhood care. And this is where we get into that second part of what we are attempting to do with this work, and certainly the Lilly grant comes into this piece. The goal is for every kindergartner in this area to be ready for school at 5. We know very well from the research that if they are not, it's almost impossible to catch them up in time to proceed, and the trajectory of their success as a student is forever changed if they are not ready at 5. The state of Indiana has a voluntary rating system for these kinds of programs. It's called PTQ. Level 4 is the highest level. ISU's program has been recognized for 10 consecutive years at a PTQ level for preschool license, and then 5 consecutive years at that level for infant and toddler services. It begins from the very beginning, and that's why we commit to serving families with infants all the way up through preschool. And when you are able to review that document that we provide, I think you'll see what a difference researchers have discovered about the quality of the early childhood experience. So the second part is for Indiana State to take the lead with some help from this planning grant from Lilly and our friends at RJL Solutions to develop a community-wide strategic plan for early childhood education in the Wabash Valley. A well-crafted plan will do so much to move us forward. You know, I was interested to hear Steve Witt here, as I sit on his board, often talk about attracting manufacturers and businesses. And one of the first questions is always, what is the quality of the educational system and what kind of services are available for us to bring employees here for early childhood education? It will be an effort that attracts businesses. We will, of course, as they were talking about, connect with NTEC as well for those opportunities for internships, but also to say to them, we've got you covered. We've got a way to help your families support their children in our community. There's so much this community has to offer, and this piece would be another piece in that puzzle of saying, this is the right place for you to locate. So that is part of our goal with the strategic plan, is to develop that plan for the community. Timeline-wise, for Indiana State on this piece, you can see a pretty specific timeline here. Because of those puzzle pieces I talked about for funding, there are all kinds of different processes for us to respond to. But essentially, this is the timeline we're looking at for actually getting the project finished to move into those first 2 floors of renovated space and be able to offer those services of expansion to the community, where indeed by May of 25, it would be our goal to be able to offer that. So you can see throughout the process, one piece I'll point to in the April of 24, regardless of where the funding comes from, because we are a state institution, we must go to the state budget committee and get permission to spend anything over $2 million. So by that point, we need to have all these puzzle pieces in place so we can go forward and say, here we have the entire project plan and here are the pieces that are in place. The measures that we would use for tracking measures are pretty specific. One would be expand early childhood education center capacity, and that would be done by this renovation. Certainly completing the renovation and getting students' families served would be the measure, and as well the completion of the strategic plan that we as a community will work together. And once again, as I said about the goal is to have every 5-year-old ready for school, we intend to not only use our research-based curriculum in the center at Indiana State, but to distribute it amongst other facilities throughout the county and the region, so that everyone can have access to that intellectual property to make sure that they are serving students and their families and moving our youngest citizens along to success in school. You have an estimated budget provided to you in your packet. I will share as well for those in attendance these designs, preliminary designs that ARC has designed for us. The left side there, many people might be familiar on North 7th. That Circle Drive next to the By College of Education is the one that you see there on that design. And this facility is the one that's just to the east and south of that, the larger piece there. This 6.5, as we take a look at this project, is a larger piece than the first half because we will take care of many of the other pieces that would have to come in the next part. There will be HVAC work that'll be done. There will be attention to an elevator. There's a graduated classroom inside the building that we would level and make it an indoor playground so students in inclement weather would have a place to be, and some schematics there of the floor plan. Of course, plumbing is a key. You have to have facilities available for young people, so there will be water throughout that's required by accreditation, and we will make sure that that all takes place. So right now, that's where we are with this proposal, and we really ask your careful consideration. We'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Questions?
Dr. Curtis, when would you be hopeful to start working, to actually start working on the project?
Well, the big key is to get through the state budget committee with that approval, because we can't move on until that's done. So we have to have all the dollars lined up and a commitment of those dollars. And if you look at the slide that has the timeline on it, you will see that we would intend to be able to move forward with this project as soon as the state budget committee provides that information to us, our approval. So you can see that probably bids would receive May of next spring, begin renovation actually of June next summer.
And then how do kids get in this facility?
Well, that's what we will take a look at, because frankly, with the first 2 floors finished, we'll probably have to spend time in both facilities for right now to expand the capacity. That's our first priority, is getting rid of that wait list and getting folks into the building. When we pursue, and we will continue to pursue dollar funding wherever we need to go to get those other 2 floors, we would eventually be able to move everybody over there and expand that capacity beyond the 145. So for a while, we will be in 2 places.
And I guess on dovetail on that, the question I've had most people ask me, and so I feel like I'm compelled to ask, how do you decide, of the 86 people that are currently in the program, whose kids are they?
So employees and students of the university have first priority, but right now, only about 40% of the children we serve are university related. So the other 60% are community, and of course, the wait list is community as well.
That's one of the things that, you know, of course, this is money from the government that the county is pushing ahead, and we want to make sure it is being used to that capacity, to increase the capacity in the education. I know grandchildren, when they went to find daycare services, it was kind of the wait list is something real, and it's something that's really needed in this community. We would like to see that when a company brings in 640 jobs, that they also offer daycare, but we don't see that. So, I mean, that's part of, so we have to work with the universities and do this. And you have a tie with Ivy Tech?
Well, so President Thacker, let me talk about that, because of course Chancellor Crooks has worked with us, and she will be a significant part of this strategic plan. And the goal is for all of these facilities in the area to have equal quality. So geographically, wherever it works for a family, they can count on high-quality experiences. Leanne's vision, and certainly they're working through Ivy Tech for some of this, and we want to incorporate this in the plan, is to have a facility down near the industrial park, and frankly, for those area folks, to have some 24/7 available daycare because of the different shifts of those employers, but yet too, they would be using this high-quality research-based curriculum, so there'd be a consistent exchange of communication among these sites. The other piece in the vision for me is that we'd have more 24/7s for people who are in other work environments with unusual work schedules compared to the rest of us in this, and yet that high-quality educational experience is there. It also would be our vision that eventually we would get to a point where, well, we're working on this right now. We're spending some time walking around DC saying, once we get facilities up and the curriculum ready to share, we need a steady stream also of some resources to provide low or no cost childcare for the families that need that. We already have a graduated scale in ours based upon income, but that's going to be the key, especially for some of these employers coming in, for those families, especially if it's both parents, and we know that's not a luxury anymore, it's a necessity for very often both parents to be working. And for them to not have that burden on their head of, I can't afford this, or my child is not going to be somewhere that's going to move them forward.
Councilman Loudermilk.
You have a few questions. Some of it was covered. I guess the target population moving forward, you said 40% right now, currently at the Farrington location, I believe it is, is the faculty and staff there.
Or students.
Or students.
Children of
Okay.
students, yes.
The future target population, will that include the 24-hour care or not?
Well, for our facility, we'd love to get there, but the one we're focusing on first is the one down there near the industrial park. So if we have a priority in the strategic plan, and once again, that's to be developed as we start applying some of this money from Lilly to do that plan, that would be the first priority because that's the first need. But the idea would to have geographically more of those spaces doing that. I will also add that the one thing we can't provide right now because we're landlocked is what we call drop-off care. We only have children there whose families have them there Monday through Friday because we don't have the space for someone who says, I only need Tuesday, Thursday. We can't fill that need. So this expansion to 2 places would allow us to add that piece. We're going to focus on near the industrial park for the first 24/7.
So the ask currently is for the Chestnut location, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So how would the industrial park be funded?
Well, in Ivy Tech, it already has a process going for their entire system with Lilly on early childhood care. So once again, it's back to that puzzle. Leanne's goal is out of what the Ivy Tech piece is with Lilly to get a piece to contribute to this. She's also been doing some really good work with the manufacturers down there, talking to them about them buying into some of this investment as well. And that will all come through this strategic plan.
So I guess to follow up to that, then why ISU and why not the private sector or the manufacturing companies down there?
Well, eventually it's going to be all of those. But I would say to you that the reason to invest in Indiana State is this is going to be the key for the high quality piece. This is going to be the key to disseminate the right kind of curriculum for children to be able to be ready for school at 5. There's a lot of research out there, Councilman, on that, and that's what we use. We want to not just hold it at the ISU facility, but we want to share it out.
As far as the funding sources, it says in progress here. So I can't help to notice that, once again, the county's asked for the lion's share, right? So we're asked for $3 million, Lilly Endowment's 1.5, and then City and Ready are 1. Is there a reason?
Do you want to? Go ahead.
So, will you go back to that slide, Joey? The funding sources in progress. 5. So I want to go back to Councilman Loudermilk, the bartering with the city. And I also want to talk about the strategic plan. There's so much going on in the community. One thing we acknowledged from the city was them repairing our parking lot and their parking lot, and there being an agreement where we were supposed to split that, and we didn't have to. That was a cost of almost $3 million. Another big piece of this was a Ready Grant recipient for a hotel downtown. That's going to cost the city, most likely, somewhere between, Betsy, I want to screw this up, $10 million or more to build a parking garage downtown. They're taking on the lion's share of that cost from that project. Actually, I didn't know until this evening that City of Terre Haute was even throwing in $1 million because I thought we were just going to be the lion's share of this project. Now, going in a roundabout way strategically all over the county, one thing that we've chosen the United Way to do is if they receive that $1 million, those daycares from the private sector that you're talking about will be able to apply for some of that funding of that $1 million. In a roundabout way, Dr. Curtis, Leanne, Rose, St. Mary's, all the colleges are working together to strategically get more students in the program and to raise their pay so they can go somewhere and work and get paid a good amount of money to do that job, while also increasing our level of child care to level 3s and 4s and not so many 1s and 2s. So there's a lot of stuff going on to try to make the industrial park happen. That's 30,000 foot level view at this point because Leanne as well is chasing a Lilly endowment. And she's going to pursue and really work on, because they're so close down there and they already have property down there. Now, there's a building down there that First Financial gave up that could be a great spot for a child care center eventually. But also working with just Ivy Tech and the universities, Leanne's done a great job of working with the manufacturers down there and saying, is there some type of incentive program that you can pay into to kind of subsidize this child care for the folks that are just getting started? Kind of like if a university or a business is willing to pay or manufacturers willing to pay for a degree in some way or something like that. So it'd be kind of the same way in child care. But it was all part of those city and county joint meetings of trying to figure out what's going on, what's the next step, tourism, child care, all the good things going on in the community, and getting to a point of we took the brunt of this cost, the city's going to take the brunt of the parking garage and the hotel project that we have yet to hear about yet, but hopefully that's coming, and just kind of working together to spread the wealth all over the community.
Just a couple more things. I guess maybe just, not really questions, but statements. I guess I have a few concerns. I mean, I have concerns with throwing government dollars behind a project like this, at another government to do a project. I've seen in the past how that can be in direct competition with some of the local businesses, so it makes it a challenge. But also I have a concern with previous attempts that we as local government have had in trying to form partnerships with ISU and how that fell apart. And that occurred, when I first came on council with the convention center. So I have concerns about that. I also have concerns about the viability of this and the capacity to do it when, quite frankly, we continue to see enrollment decline at the university, what that looks like moving forward. I mean, if we do something like this, you're talking, what would it be, 2025, according to the timeline, most likely? Completion of project, then what does the landscape look like at the university? So that is a concern, and you know, quite frankly, and it's probably not be popular to say this, but I also have concerns whether or not this can be a success when we apparently don't have the capacity to host 2 events this weekend here on the university property. So all that is a concern to me.
So let me take that ladder and we'll see if we want to go down that path today. This weekend, we're going to host nearly 5,000, 3,000 athletes, 1,500 volunteers in a 50-year collaboration with Indiana Special Olympics. And their families, you add into that, we're close to 5,000 people we're hosting who would be on some of the same spaces. It was a careful decision to be made where we determined if we could not do it well, we should not do it. And that was why the decision was made. Now, capacity, we have only so many athletic facilities on this campus. And that 50-year commitment to Indiana Special Olympics, and by the way, let me say, the TCU community has set up a campaign to contribute dollars to the Indiana Special Olympics because they were so grateful we didn't step away from that commitment. They, at this point, and it's probably gone up now, over 500 donors, $23,000 towards Indiana Special Olympics, saying that they recognized that we decided to make sure we served that commitment. If we were to continue, and by the way, we've just done 2 really phenomenal weekends of baseball at Indiana State. When we took a look at the housing opportunities in the community and what the NCAA expects, we determined with all these visitors, nearly 5,000 in the community, we could not do it in a way that this community should be proud of. So we made that commitment right now. If in the future, when in the future we're at this spot again, we will likely not have a conference tournament running into a regional, running into a super regional at the same time to contend with it. The conference one doesn't come around to everybody every single year. We're really proud of the work athletics did to put on 2 phenomenal weekends of baseball, and we will maintain our commitment to Indiana Special Olympics to give them the support that they deserve.
All right, I don't doubt that, and I think that's to be commended that you want to, honor that commitment. I think it's a 51-year relationship, correct? But my concern is just the ability to not handle both this weekend. I don't disagree. Last 2 weekends were great, but a lot of people in this community hope for a 3rd weekend.
Well, and that would have been our preference, but we had to make a choice to do it right, and that's the way we've chosen to do it. And I will tell you that for the university's commitment to this is beyond the university. You know, we've got 1,500 volunteers getting engaged in this weekend. It took quite a few volunteers to pull off the last 2 weekends, and we were not in a position where we thought we were confident we could do that. Just the seating capacity, we continue to occasionally receive some concerns about the regional being here, because our seating capacity is 2,300. TCU has a seating capacity of 6,000, yet we won that regional opportunity amongst others in the regional. So we really believe our athletics department did a great job of getting that regional here, and we've chosen to spend our resources on committing to the prior commitment we had. I will tell you, and I'm not talking out of school because the coach gave this in a press conference. He said, to tell you the truth, we like going on the road because I can control their focus a whole lot better than the distractions they have at home. We'll see. We're looking forward to that. But I will tell you that not only is the team and the coach behind this decision, but our athletics division carefully thought through this.
Dr. Curtis, I'd like to thank you for, I have had to make some tough decisions in my life, and it's the toughest thing to do is after you make the decision, you have to educate people why you made the decision. And I appreciate you addressing that. Even though we're here for childcare, we're not here for baseball tonight, but it all has to do with our ability to host, and I understand the question. But we do want to make sure everybody knows that they're having a send-off at 2:30 at the airport tomorrow for those who want to support the athletics on their flight. But I do have some other questions here that I wanted to ask as well.
Dr. Curtis, a few questions, some that were hinted on and some other things. For the children that are outside of the local area for the child care, do you have any plans in place for them for other people to get there? And I understand that the goal is to put one down at the industrial park, but so many other children don't have access to child care and don't have the means to get there. So what's your plan for that?
Well, I can only speak to the quality of care that's available to them. I'm not suggesting, but it could be something we can build into the strategic plan. Would there be some kind of transportation consideration to that? But the goal is wherever these facilities are in the community, for them to have access not only the curriculum, but then ongoing training from what I'm calling the hub of the curriculum, and pushing out that knowledge and experience. So if those children are in an outlying area, that those providers be able to access then the training and the quality for them to be able to stay locally. If you would like, I will even bring that to the table as we start on the strategic plan. We want to look at some kind of a transportation model.
I mean, I think transportation is extremely important. I know that the commissioners have worked hard on coming up with a transportation program for the outlying areas for the community. So I definitely think that that's something that needs to be addressed. Another question which Councilman Loudermilk hinted on as far as the funding and stuff. I guess when I look at this, and my concern is not only with your declining enrollment, but also when you're losing staff and you're laying staff off, that you're looking at a program that you hope to break even and you're already getting rid of staff. My concern would be that how are you going to make sure that you don't have to lay staff off and that you can properly keep employment there?
Well, Councilman, I'll tell you, we laid no one off in the child care facility. As a matter of fact, we grow that.
And I'm not just talking about child
care.
Well,
let me say this, though. About 1,000 employees, we actually had to part ways with 9 people. 9. There were 4 faculty and 5 employees. And frankly, that came through a great deal of reorganization and study. So this is not a massive layoff plan that we engaged in here. We are a lean and efficient machine now, and as I promoted since I've been back here, we will live within our means, and that's what the reorganization was. Now, as far as enrollment, I would ask you to look beyond Terre Haute. We are in the midst of many, many others who are seeing the decline. Indiana is 48th in post-secondary college going, 48th in the country. This is an Indiana challenge, and I messaged that throughout my budget presentations this year. As the state of Indiana goes, so goes Indiana State University. Now, with that said, we are still more than 8,000 students at Indiana State University. We were never 13,000. We stopped counting dual credit students several years ago. No one else counts dual credit. So that number was not even totally accurate at the time. But we are working very hard, and certainly the provost could comment on this if he wanted. We are doing some things that we are finding in the last year to draw those students and families back into this post-secondary experience that no one else is doing, but now they've seen us doing and they're starting to do it, so it's always get ahead, ahead.
And I don't think it's an Indiana thing only on the declining enrollment. I think it's the general public changing their direction on education. I think you're seeing more people, for instance, like Mr. Thacker here, that are going more toward trade schools and toward things like that. So I think my concern is that as that continues to progress, that you may continue to see a decline, and that the funding issue behind this would be a concern.
So let me say one other thing about that too. The need is not declining in the area for child care.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, the need for teachers prepared for it is not declining at all as well. We're trying to get our fair share of that piece, but I will reiterate something I say at the state level as well. We have to start thinking of a Hoosier citizen as someone at different points in their lives are going to need different levels of either high-quality credentials or degrees or advanced degrees. And that's what Indiana State is doing, is remodeling to start serving not only our traditional 18-year-olds, which there are fewer of those. That enrollment cliff, they aren't there. It's not like we're not getting them. They aren't there, as well as some of these messages. What I say at the state level is, okay, that's good. Have the trades come in and talk to students, but it may not be a forever career. Somewhere, that individual, and I always say, when we start designing this around the citizen, when do they need the infusion of the next piece of education? That's what we are focused on. How do we not say to, for example, a construction worker, by the way, you want a degree to become a foreman, you got to quit your job and come live in a dorm in Terre Haute. That's not going to happen. We have a fully online construction management program for those people. And we are doing more of that to be able to say, you don't have to quit what you're doing and come be here. We are going to serve you. And I say to the governor all the time, Indiana State fills the middle class in the state. The people who come in, 50% are first gen, 50% are low income. Do not equate that with unable. They're capable, academically capable people. Anyone who is able should not be left out of the process to grow. So watch us, I would tell you, and we make statements to the newspaper all the time about these plans. The problem with that is that somebody else picks it up. If you look at, I don't know, this will be out there. So I would say, if you look at some other institutions' plans for the fall, they're exactly what we were doing last year. So we have to stay one step ahead.
Let me make a comment too. I think of all, whatever problems everybody has, one thing that is a big problem in young families is child care. And that is a big problem. Watch the women leave this building at 3 and 4 minutes until 4 o'clock because they're trying to get out to pick up their kids so they don't have to pay a little fine because they were late getting their kids. They worry sick about having good child care. That it is a problem for women, young families. They look at this. Steve Witt will tell you that child care is a major concern for people, families, young families coming to a community. Good child care is critically important in a decision where a family moves. And that's something, if we can develop a good child care program across this community, it will be a major drawing point to bring more good companies to this community. And I had lunch with Dr. Curtis and Leanne Crooks, and they talked about this whole plan. It is remarkable what they hope to be doing, and I think it will work. And this education plan for up on the campus, it'll be construction jobs, it'll be teaching jobs, childcare jobs. It'll put some more people in the downtown area. The restaurants will have more people eating. And we need this. We need some people in the downtown area. I'm for it. I'm going to vote for it. I'll be back next week to vote. Okay, let's go.
And I think the need for childcare is huge. I mean, I
It's
think
enormous.
as
Critical.
a spouse
It's
of a
critical.
teacher, I think that it's extremely important to get that childcare. I think that some of my personal concerns and some of the community concerns are the funding. Number one, how you're going to keep going. And I think that there are a lot of people that are a little gun shy of the ISU. I mean, you see it in social media comments and stuff like that, where people are concerned about the board and things. I just want to make sure that it's taken care of right. I think the program will be ran right. I'm not concerned about that. I'm just concerned about the funding and things like that, and how it'll keep going. So.
Well, let me say this as a state entity as well as Diane McKee and her team have led almost $500 million worth of construction, and we got $66 million coming right now to that building at the corner of 6th and Cherry. They know how to do this work, and they've done it for a long time. This purpose is outside of our ability to go to the state for it because it's not our main mission. Child care is not our main mission. The closest we can get to selling it there is it's a laboratory. But more than anything, it's a service in this community so that employees can go to work. And as Steve Witt is charging up their work, we're going to have more and more of this demand.
Oh, without a doubt.
as someone who works in the schools, who's experienced ISU students in her classroom, who herself has gone through the master's in counseling program and had to do stuff at preschool, elementary, on up through high school levels, I'm addressing the need. I actually was on the waiting list. I know that your facility is top-notch. I've had several friends go through there that were community people. I've been saying that all along. This is a community resource, not just an ISU resource. But what I see for it, because I have seen my students at the high school level go through the Ivy Tech programs. I've seen some of my students go into the early education programs that are in collaboration with Ivy Tech, some work with ISU as well. And the need for qualified, good, certified preschool and daycare and babies. We don't have the facilities. We have a decent amount that will take toddlers and above. But infants, trying to find a place for an infant in this community, having been through it, and, you know, granted it's been 12 years ago, 14 years ago, but also I have several friends that have been in that boat. It's very difficult unless you are Johnny on the spot, and you just never know when you're gonna have kids sometimes. And so not only is this being a service for daycare, you can tell I'm pretty passionate about this. Not only is this a fulfillment of a child care need that we are struggling with, okay, for quality places, but in addition to that, it's a training ground. And I love that you said this will be a hub, because I would love to see you reach out, which it sounds like what you're talking about, and offer free trainings and collaborations and resources to some of those, because some people, I just even think of former students of mine that have their own child care facilities, they're doing well, but guess where they started? In collaboration with Ivy Tech through our Vikes and Tykes programs and other things with the schools. And so without that collaboration, without that preparing educators, we're not gonna have, just like what we're talking about with teachers at all levels, we have to have that. And, you know, if you know anything about Indiana State, one of the earliest reasons they started is education. The Bayh College of Education was a laboratory school where people did training, and some of the best education came out of there. So for this, I see it with training, all ages, community support. If we have issue with how much the county's giving, maybe we look into an agreement that we save a certain spot, you know, so that, you know, maybe with ISU one day they take up 70%, and then we feel like we're not getting the, you know, the amount of spaces. Maybe we need to make a partnership with that to say how much would be open to the community and so on. But I think for us to turn this away when we're looking at what our community needs, we need schools and we need childcare. And if we don't have children in our communities, we're not gonna grow. Our county is declining, and we need to do something drastically right now to bring it up. And I'm gonna get off my soapbox, but I really wanna encourage that reaching out and that collaborative effort, not just within Ivy Tech or St. Mary's, because gosh, that was one that, think of all the ones that have closed in the last 5-10 years. I mean, that was a big one, was St. Mary's, and it was quality. But you think about all those, and I know how hard it was when all those were open. So when I look at that, I really ask that we encourage the partnership within those universities, but also looking to continue working with the school corporation, because there are young people that want to work with children.
Absolutely, and those three institutions beyond Rose-Hulman, because they don't have a program in it, all three of those institutions would be able to have clinicals in these sites as well. It isn't just for clinicals for Indiana State, it's Ivy Tech, it's St. Mary's, and we will have them doing that rotation and opportunities in these high-quality, accredited learning environments.
So that's all that I ask, is that you create a partnership board, community board, anything like that. Because yes, I look at this, but, and we are, it kind of, I mean, I'll be honest, when Mr. Loudermilk mentioned that, we do. Sometimes there's been several things we get the lion's share, and we're not always happy about it. I do think at some point we're gonna have to really look at if we wanna keep bringing these businesses in, what we're gonna have to do. And if you need someone to help out or serve on the, gotta keep volunteering for boards, but, I'm glad to.
If you want something done, ask a busy person, so be careful,
Yeah.
you're gonna get
No, I
tapped.
keep busy.
Thank you for your consideration today, and we are available for questions throughout.
Thank you.
Head Start is transportation.
Okay, we have now item number 9. It is additional appropriation 2023-36 ARPA grant reimbursement hospital benefits. And Mr. Bramble will be handling this one.
Well,
And it's on page, what page? 186.
Well, through March 31st of this year, our hospital employee benefits funds paid out $693.28 to treat COVID-related illnesses for our county employees. And I'd like to have the ARPA funds reimburse that in the interest of keeping our county's employees' health insurance costs lower.
And this is an approved expenditure that has been discussed with RJL Solution, and it is a proper request. Any questions for Mr. Bremer? Nothing real flashy about it, but just
No.
something very needed.
This is the cheap one tonight out of ARPA.
No tie either, so. Item number 10, additional appropriation 2023-37, prosecutor, office supplies, contractual service, trial and investigation, office furniture. Page 211. I believe that's what I had down.
Good evening, Rob Roberts, Chief Deputy Prosecutor. Pinch hitting for Mr. Modisett because he is out because of his wife's birthday this evening, for those of you that may not have caught that earlier. Having been a part of this process for many years, I understand how the summer months become very occupied with the budgeting process. Certain meetings do not take place. And so one of the things that we recognized earlier on is due to inflation and certain things that have changed since COVID, we have a few of our line items. One that was cut during the last budgeting process that we recognize we're not going to have enough in. A couple of others that we've already come pretty close to expending the approved amount that was given to us. And so we've got a couple of additional requests that we're making. One is for equipment new. We have made some adjustments, moved some people around in the courthouse. There's a possibility of additional movement taking place depending on what happens with the requests for the salaries, additional positions, and those things. But we have some desks that are older than some people on the council right now. And so we're asking for an additional appropriation to replace those. We've replaced a number of those over the last 5 years out of the infraction deferral monies that have been available. Those typically run anywhere from $2,500 to $3,000. We use local business Thiemens to go through those purchases, and we've tried to purchase high-quality materials so that they will last for a significant period of time. We're also requesting an additional money to office supplies. As you would note, last year we did make an expenditure into office supplies of approximately $9,000. That amount was cut during the budget process for 2023, and we are looking at seeing, as every other department has, additional costs associated with our office supplies. One of the biggest costs that we've experienced over the last few years, we used to be able to buy large spindles of CDs, 250, 500 at a time, and that's how we were able to provide the evidence to defense attorneys and other people that we needed to provide that to. With digital evidence these days, CDs are no longer where it's at. We need thumb drives. We need terabyte hard drives. And so in those situations, that's been a big part of our expenditures in being able to provide the data that's part of our investigations to the public defenders and the defense attorneys that we're required to provide that to. So we're just asking for a small appropriation that we think will be enough to cover us and get us through the end of the year. The next item is an additional $8,000 to contractual services. One, because of the number of trials and trial preparation that's taking place, we've seen an increase in our printing costs, our color printing costs in particular, for color photographs and those sorts of things. In addition, the records management system that's used by the Vigo County Sheriff's Office, the Terre Haute Police Department, and the West Terre Haute Police Department, RMS, is an item that in the past we have been provided licenses for, primarily through the Terre Haute Police Department. As they were approaching their cap on their licenses, we started looking at whether or not we needed to get our own. This is the record management system. This is what we need to be able to get on, read their reports, again, download those reports, make those available as part of our requirement, both to the courts and to the defense. And so that is an annual contract that we have now got that's going to cost us about $5,500 a year for 30 licenses. Trials and investigations, we've already had a number of trials this year, and we are looking at a significant number of, I expect, high-level trials, including another attempted murder trial coming up in a couple of weeks, and a hostage standoff case, and both of them scheduled for June 26th. So this is just, again, it's not something that we have happen every single year, which is why we don't ask for just a standard increase in that amount every single year. But because we've already had a number of trials and we anticipate quite a few more, I wanted to kind of get ahead on that. And then extraditions. Prior to COVID, an extradition from the West Coast may have typically cost us between $3,000 to $4,000. We've had 2 quotes in the last month for individuals out in California that were arrested on warrants out of Vigo County. Each of those quotes were $8,000. Our annual allotment for extradition of fugitives is $15,000. So that could be wiped out entirely. Now, in an effort to try and make this more economical, the Terre Haute Police Department did agree recently to have 2 of their detectives trained so that they can actually now fly on airlines that will permit it, and they can carry their firearms, bring prisoners back from wherever those locations are. And we just, instead of paying $8,000 for one of those transports back from California, we just sent 2 detectives out, covered all the airline fees for the 2 to get out, for the 3 to come back, and they brought a person involved in an attempted armed robbery and shooting case that ultimately gave us a full confession and implicated the co-defendant in the case that we were also trying to ultimately get. So these are just costs of, unfortunately, for lack of a better phrase, doing business that have gone up. And rather than panicking in September and October as the end of the budget process comes through, we were hoping to get ahead of some things this year.
Any questions? Very thorough. Is there, I know the next item you have up there is that appropriation. Does any of that come into play with this, where some of your, you make grants to them, but do we get any of that in trade, or going picking up a couple?
Well, I don't think that the departments would necessarily try to utilize their officers that way, but yeah, and I can discuss the infraction deferral and what we're trying to do with some of that. Infraction deferral income has been down. We've, for those of you that have been with the council for a couple of years, you know that there were times where our income for that program was $150,000, $180,000 a year. That's no longer the situation. $4,000 to $6,000 a month, roughly equating to about $60,000 a year is the income for that program. There are there's one salary that is supported through that. That was something that the council put into place many years ago. But when that account was more ripe than what it has been. But this, many times when we receive requests from law enforcement for additional equipment and for support services, whatever those may be, oftentimes it's because of a more urgent need than what would be done to go through an appropriation process through the city or through the county. And these are infraction deferral dollars, so they are generated by law enforcement efforts. If anybody has any questions about how the infraction deferral program works and how that money is generated, I'd be glad to answer those. But so those are dollars that are generated through law enforcement efforts, just like seized assets are, and we primarily make sure that we utilize those to support the law enforcement officers that are doing that. The current request that we have before us is from the Indiana State Police for their local officers that are assigned to Vigo County to have new units that are called LiDAR. I think they're laser units for, rather than the radar units that we all used to have our little detectors on our dashboards for. They use lasers now, and not as effective in detecting, I guess. I don't know. I don't have one of those anymore. But they would like some newer units and updated and more accurate units. And frankly, if they have those, maybe there's an increase in income there for the infraction deferral program. I don't know. That's not the primary motivation. The primary motivation is certainly to make sure that they have the equipment that they need. But there's a potential benefit for this current request that we have.
Any questions on the infractional deferral? Very thorough. All right.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we open up for public comment. All right. No. Oh.
I'd like to address what Dr. Curtis said about the, ISU and child care. This is just a scenario, hypothetical. But what about like how many tax abatements that you guys give up a course of a year, instead of giving them 100% tax abatement on their stuff, you give them 90%. The other 10%, like I said, just a possibility. The other 10% would go into addressing child care needs and training instructors, especially in the, in the early childhood, where, the return on education for a young kid is dramatically increases their future, success. So if you have so many tax abatements, if, you say, hey, if we could get 10% of, say 75 or 100 tax abatements, you give a year. I don't care how many. But if you get 10%, you ask Dr. Kerr, what could you do with these funds if you had them available? How many places could you spread throughout the county so you could have places, or like we was talking about, like that Intech, big place like that, they'll have their own child care, period. But being that said, if you had so much available, you have to invest in things. You just can't take money out of the treasury until you don't have nothing left in it, and everybody else's needs keep on rising and rising, and you're giving it to all the businesses. I know they provide jobs and stuff, but there's a lot of things that people have to do other than just provide jobs that everybody else has all the needs, and people are putting this in the pot and that in the pot and this in the pot. They have to have some type of a return on it stuff, but anyway, just like I said, just, how many people could they get into a daycare, that we don't have right now if they had so much money available to them? I'm just kind of curious about that. And another thing, because I think about tourism, like you have these school buses and stuff like that around, that, like they run to end their life, they sell them off or something like that, about having like school buses and stuff like that in around the Wabash Valley, where you would have like a Wabash Valley community tour bus, where you would have so many events in different areas around Terre Haute, Vincennes or Brazil or wherever you want to go. They would have buses in locations where they could, pack off 50 people, 100 people on, or 20 people on a bus. They could go to a local community. They could see what a local community has. They could spend a little bit of money in local community because, there's a lot of times people, you don't have a car that you trust that you can drive, to go someplace like 100 miles away. But if somebody's going to drive it, you wouldn't have to worry about the hectic, the drive or the worry of the drive. And you could go there and, who knows? Terre Haute would have a lot of events, so you might even get more tourism here in Terre Haute. But, you could have even places around, they wanted to go see some places like where the buses drop off people and they're at a certain event or something like that. You could even have some of them rental bikes or something. Hey, rental bikes are cheap enough. You go over to these areas outside of say a festival. There's 2 or 3 other places that you guys might want to go see while you're here. You might be able to ride a bike, expand the people's tourism or their ability to see what your community offers. Just outside of a festival or some type of an art space that you're trying to get the people there. But it would allow tourism to go places or to do something, because a lot of times people have to have the ability to go someplace in order to try to grasp what other places are doing, what they see in this place, what they see in that place, in order for it to give a payback to you. But,
Well, thank you for your comment. You used up the time there. We appreciate it. And so is there any other public comment before we adjourn? We'll stand adjourned until regular scheduled meeting. Now, I'm just went ahead and adjourned. No, you were so patient. You were so patient waiting for the question.
Well, they actually asked a lot of the questions.
No, I thought.